You're good to go?
I'm good to go.
Excellent. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Talk to Danielle podcast. I am your host, Danielle C. Baker. And before we get started today, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to whichever channel you're listening to or watching from. And today I have an amazing guest. You all know I always say this, I always have amazing guests, but this one in particular is, I find so interesting. And he's actually, he's one of, is a neighbor. He's from Ottawa as well. He's in Ottawa right now. And I have Douglas Currier with me. And for those who may not know, Douglas has quite a life story. Most of you may know him from being an Olympian. He used to be on the Canadian bobsled team, and he's had an amazing life since. So I introduce you now to the wonderful Douglas. Thank you so much, Douglas, for coming on.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And we'll get a dive right in. If you could just, before I get into the more specific questions, could you tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, well, I grew up in a small town, Prescott, Ontario. It's approximately an hour from Ottawa. And my father was always an athlete. He played hockey for Clarkson University. He got a scholarship. He grew up in a very, very poor family, and it was his way to be able to get an education. So my father always prized sports. And again, being in a small town, it afforded me a lot of different opportunities. I did all the sports. I played football, soccer, track and field, you name it. But as I got older, you become more specific with the sports that you do. And in high school, I really gravitated towards. I mean, I played football and a variety of other sports, but I really loved track and field. I also was doing a little bit of hockey, but at the time that I was in high school, it was a fascinating time sports-wise because we had this guy Peter Hoy who played AAA baseball. We had Barry Beckham, who left our high school at grade 11, but became an All-American high school basketball player, played for Duke, and played pro basketball in Italy for years. There was Todd Gill, who played for years for the Toronto Maple Leafs. We had the Canadian record holder in race walking. So it was just this really bizarre time where all of these athletes, and then myself, I was an offset champion in shot put in grade 13, but I had a weird combination of strength and speed. So I also ran 100 meters. So in high school, I was running 100 in less than 11 seconds. But it took me a while to sort of find bobsled because as much as I liked track and shot put, I wasn't big enough to be a true shot putter unless I wanted to gain 60 or 70 pounds, which I didn't. And I was just a little too large to be a truly great sprinter. But bobsled, which is what I ended up doing after my third year of university, had the perfect requisite. I had the requisite sort of physicality for it because I was fast and I was large, and that's one of the things they were looking for. Because when I did bobsled from 89 to 92, and at that time everything goes through cycles. They primarily were looking for track athletes back then. Prior to that, the dominant philosophy was we're going to use very large guys, kind of like linemen, because the sled's heavy to get it off. And then they realized the problem with that is they can only move it so far so fast before they top out their speed. So then they went to track athletes. And now most of the current bobsledders are kind of a hybrid. They're all really fast, but they're really strong and large. So they're more like linebackers. Everything phases through. So that's sort of the sporting that I did. And then after I was a bobsledder, I was kind of looking for a job. Jobs weren't easily available. So I had a few jobs that just ended. And then I was volunteering in an old age home. And I had a certain affinity with the geriatric set, and so I applied and I went to Algonquin College to become an RPN. Which I did. And I've been an RPN ever since. It's now coming into my 28th year. And then throughout, I have 3 amazing daughters, and and Angie, my wife and I, what we do now is one of the I've got so many different things that I do. We sell and we try to flip basically fine bone china and certain pieces of artwork, and so we've been doing that for quite a few years now. We really love it. It's the hunt, and just recently I've entered. I'm now part of our union. We have a local union at my hospital, local 4540, and we have like over 850 members, and I'm currently the vice president of that.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's busy, but yeah, and I I got a couple little sidelines or hobbies. I hesitate whenever I get interested in something to mention it to my wife, because Angie just looked at me, seriously, you've got no time. She's gonna like suffocate me in my sleep one of these days, because I can be a little hyper at times. So anyway, I'll try to calm it down. So that's me in somewhat of a nutshell.
I love it. And I love how you said that. As I got to tone it down a little bit because I could keep going. But that's really what it is. You just find something you like and you go with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you this question because I've had a few athletes on the podcast before, and we always talk about transferable skills. So there's this training, this intense training that comes with any kind of sport. And when you were going through the training, whether it was a track or the sport or bobsledding, there's some sacrifices that need to be made to be able to get to that next level. I mean, you made it to the Olympics, which is amazing. This is something that a lot of athletes don't get a chance to do. Well, what would you say would be the hardest things that you would have had to give up, or that you had to change, some habits you had to change in your life to be able to get there?
Yeah, I've never, I mean, this is a question that occasionally gets posed. I never like the term sacrifice. I like the term choice or decisions. That's what I've always tried to instill in my kids. You're not sacrificing one thing for another. You're making, a conscious choice. But, for me, I was very fortunate because as an amateur athlete, not universally across the board, but often we're done doing what we're doing before the family comes along.
Mm-hmm.
So I was not doing, sports, at the level that I was doing when I was on the bobsled team and doing track and field when I had a family. So there was no sacrifices in that nature. I think the biggest sacrifices that people would make, a lot of you pro athletes, they have to move around, and their commitments are huge, and they're leaving their wife and their children at home, and that would be huge, and that would have absolutely killed me. But decisions, so your friends would go out to a small town to be, bush parties or this and that, and you had to make a decision. Do you want to train or do you not want to train? I had this amazing track coach, Joe Burke, and he sat me down one day. Well, me and other athletes. He goes, here's how it breaks down. You got three main choices, and if you want to be an athlete, you got to choose two. You can't do three. So you can either do sports, you can go to school, you can have a girlfriend and well, he was joking, but more like an active social life. He goes, you choose two and you can do well. You choose three and you can't. You can't be going and partying, trying to do sports, and being academically solid to be able to get possible scholarships or further your education. He goes, choose two. If you choose three, I'll continue to coach, but there'll be a limit. And so I think that's the type of sacrifices athletes make, either consciously or unconsciously.
Yeah, you're right. That is I like what you said there. I don't like the word sacrifice as well, because it just boils down to a choice. You really want it or you don't. Yeah. Oh, that's a good. And with everything that you've got going on and that you moved on to afterwards, what would you say, any skills or anything that you learned while you were training as an athlete that you were able to apply into nursing, into all of that stuff?
Two things. One, and it goes more, not just necessarily nursing, but just in other things, trying to, if you commit to something, trying to get to what I would tell people is a point of failure, meaning that you want to be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, I've given everything I can. I could do no more. And I got to tell you, for myself and the other athletes that I've talked to, nobody ever feels that way. You always feel like you could have done a little bit more. But if you're fortunate, I feel I was fortunate that I was close to a sort of a point of failure, meaning that I was doing just about as well as I could possibly do. And that's my natural limit. Right. And that goes through for anything like going forward. If you're going to truly commit to something, you want to commit to it and do it to the best of your ability. It's trite, but it's true. The other thing, and I think the most important thing that, a lot of athletes have learned at an early age is, how do I put this? To grinding, be able to grind it out, because especially in nurses, like being a nurse, there are days when it's so hard, but you just do the job that's in front of you because you have to do it. Same as being in sports. I mean, especially when I was doing track, I was like a shot putter. So when I was like training for the 100 meters, I didn't have very good speed endurance. So some of the speed endurance training was awful. I'd be, throwing up in the corner. It's like, okay, I got to get back at it. Right. And it's the same thing in life. I've got 3 kids. I mean, it's hard. And what you do is you just focus on what's in front of you, because if you look too far ahead, you're just going to, oh my God, I've already suffered from depression. That would kill me. So I just try to focus on what's in front of me and realize that there's great moments and there's moments that you get through just by doing what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. Those are two points that not a lot of people bring up. So I'm kind of glad that you did that grind. Yeah, that grind. And that reality. You don't always throw up when you have to portion something, but I like that visual. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's not enjoyable at the time, though.
No, sure not. No. And then you look back and you're like, those were the best years of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you kind of answered that, but I'm gonna this next question. I'm still gonna ask it because I like the way you think. I just want to get your perspective on it. But what is the one thing that you think is important for people to know in order for them to get ready for an athletic life or starting a new career or anything of that sort? Is there something from your experiences, the one thing that people should know that we don't think of?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big things is commitment and understanding that how you're feeling, the nervousness, the lack of belief in yourself that we all go through. That's normal. Everybody has it. Specifically for sports, I read somewhere, and I wish I knew who said this, but what they were saying is that you don't rise to the occasion. Like when we look at great athletes like track and field, like Donovan Bailey, how he rose to the occasion, or Usain Bolt. You don't rise to the occasion so much as you default to your last level of solid, consistent training. So you can take that attitude going forward, this train regularly, train consistently, and with the realization that you're going to have your bad days, and that's the way it is. As long as you're trending forward and you're still enjoying it generally, because there's always times we don't enjoy even the stuff we love. I think that's something that works well, because sometimes people with careers or with sports just get in this mindset that, okay, I'm naturally gifted. It's going to come together when it needs to, and that doesn't happen. It comes together because you've put it together for years and decades. At the moment, then you need it. So.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. That's a good real. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I'm taking notes right now. Okay. Now, what was it? I'm going to get a little bit more personal here. What was the transition for you? And you go as comfortable as you are. What was the transition for you from going from the athlete life to getting into the healthcare system?
Yeah. Like in any transition, it's never easy. One of the cool things about being a bobsledder is nobody knows who you are, but if you mention it, then you suddenly can, it can be kind of a cool opening or whatever. So you can completely fly under the radar. It's not like, even when I was competing, that I'd be walking around and go, oh my God, he's a bobsledder. Nobody knew who I was, right? So I could do whatever I wanted. So the transition in that respect. Like, I can't imagine what it would be like to be like a professional athlete, especially like an A-lister where everybody knows you. So any transition that you want to do is under, public eye and public scrutiny. I mean, for me, it was just, I did this, and now that part of my life is over. Now I'm going into nursing, but I mean, so my transition or my entering into nursing is like anybody else entering into nursing. It's hard. I mean, the learning curve, like the Matterhorn, and you're not dealing with widgets, you're dealing with people. And so and families and patients. And so there's a lot of responsibility because of what you're doing. So in that aspect, the transition was hard, as it would be for anyone. But I was somewhat fortunate. Like, my sports was my sports, and when I was done, I left it. I mean, I still try to work out, and in my mid 40s, I came back and I did a little bit of masters track and field, which was fun. But you just realize how old and brittle you are, and how, like that guy that used to be. Yeah. He's never coming back. but it was a blast.
Yeah. I've had a conversation with somebody recently about that, where it's just like, boxing type of thing, and it's like, you always think you can beat everybody until somebody beats you, and then you're like, oh, okay. Yeah.
And everything hurts more as you get older. One of my very first times, I hadn't put on a pair of spikes in close to like 10 years or over. And I thought, I'm going to be smart. I'm older, I'm wiser. I'm just going to go really slow and gentle, a couple strides. Then I was feeling good, right? So I decided to go a little faster. Very first time, pulled my hamstring, and I'm like, I can make the pain stop. And I didn't want to seem like that old loser guy, which I absolutely was. So I'm trying to walk off like I haven't just pulled something, because I was going not very fast.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's funny. Yeah, that's good times.
Yeah.
Yeah, for anybody who's listening, I know they'll relate to that somehow, that moment where it's like, oh yeah, I'm not 19 anymore. I'm not 18. No. And the body your mind is still thinking you are.
Oh my God, I'm just awesome in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We're unstoppable, and we can recover just like that. Yeah.
It's that transition to the body that's hard.
Yeah, the body brings us back to reality.
Oh yeah.
I love it. You mentioned in the beginning that you kind of have to tread lightly when it comes to new things that you're interested in before you tell your wife. How did you know? Is it something that you? Okay, I gotta find my words. Is this something that came naturally to you? You knew you weren't going to be just sticking to one thing in your life. You're going to be doing different things. Is that something you already knew, or is that something you kind of discovered along the way?
It's kind of the way I've always been. I'm very gregarious when I'm in a public setting, but I'm naturally quite introverted. And so I've also been fortunate. I've surrounded myself with extremely smart, very curious friends. And so myself and my friend group, it's just very, very common. I've always been, if I ever had to describe myself, I think one of the main terms I would use would be curious. Like I could go and I'll look at like an elevator and just, I'm thinking, how does that work with like the counterweights and the balance? And so I don't just look, I'll just try to do a little research and figure out how elevators work, just because at my work, when you walk in, they have an exposed elevator. And just with the pulleys and the counterbalance, I just thought it looked fascinating. And so that's sort of the way I am. But the problem is, my friends feed into me. I have this great friend in Calgary, Jeff, and he's a bit of a polymath. And so he'll go, well, how about this? And I go, oh, yeah. I get excited like I got into Ethereum mining. So I bought the hardware and had to do the research and all of this kind of stuff. But the problem with Jeff, my buddy, is he'll talk about this stuff. He won't do so much. He'll mention it to me and I'll actually go and I'll try to do it. So yeah.
He's the instigator.
Stop texting him, because I don't know what his next thing is, but he'll get me excited and I'll do something stupid.
I love it. The instinct. We all have that one friend that just gets us going. at least you notice it, you
Oh yeah,
recognize
yeah,
it, so
yeah.
you can pace yourself. What kind of advice do you wish you would have had earlier, or wisdom that would have made your life easier? Can you share anything like that?
Yeah. Because I was when I was reading the questions, probably, how do I put this? I wish I would have been more selective in what I was doing, because as I
Mm,
mentioned earlier in my introduction, as an athlete in a small town, it's somewhat expected that you will do everything because you're kind of able to do everything at a level that you can make any. I mean, and not to sound braggy, but I was fortunate in my athletic gifts, and so I could do most sports if I wanted to. And so the football coaches wanted me, and so I did a bit of football and soccer. I mean, if
right.
I had to go back, let's say if I could just time travel back to grade 11, enjoy my hair for a little bit, what I would want to do, I would probably get rid of almost everything I was doing, and I would have just focused on track and field. I would have just let hockey
Mm,
go. But it's easy to say, but my dad was my coach. And so I had so many great years and extra time with my father that a lot of kids don't get. So that was awesome. But as far as an athletic point of view, I would have wanted to just be a little more specific in
mhm,
what you're doing, because it's very easy for a lot of people, that in, like, I didn't have this worry, but being open to maybe the sport that you love isn't the sport that you're best at. I mean, I think one of the problems in Canada is hockey has such a large gravitational pull, and certain other
mhm.
sports, now basketball, that people who might be very good at other sports, um, just
Yeah.
they're not being they go to those sports as opposed to what they may be better at. And I mean, honestly, in Canada, we have a situation where an awful lot of what we do, very few people can make it, let's say, at a world stage, but an awful lot of people could get a solid American scholarship if they pick the right avenue of sports, you know
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, you're
And
right about that.
yeah, and it's different depending on the countries, because like in certain Eastern Bloc countries, what they would do is they would analyze like the children. You don't want to get into this, but to see what their natural aptitude is. And I'll just give you a quick story. So my coach, my shot put coach, when I was in high school and a bit of university, he knew I had terrible balance, but he coached
Mm,
for lots of years, and so I'm at the track. One of my daughters is running, is on one of the sprint teams, and my middle daughter, and that's Sydney, and Mackenzie, my youngest, also did some track, but Taylor was there, and I met Joe, and I went, Joe, how you doing? And Taylor was looking around, and he was testing people. I'll be very quick. So he was testing people to see if they could be hammer throwers. And what you do is you close your eyes. The coach spins you around 10 times, stops you. You open your eyes, and you have to go for a straight walk. And so
oh,
Joe's
wow.
telling this story to Taylor, and he said, "I did this to your dad," and instead of going straight, he went that way. I just about fell over. I have nothing. So Taylor goes, "Well, can you try that with me?" And so he's expecting the same result. So he spins Taylor around. Taylor walks straight as like an arrow. His eyes pop open. He goes, "I want you to start training." And she ended up becoming second in Canadian youth. I mean, it's
Wow.
yeah. So it's one of those things. She was just thinking of maybe doing some running, but this happenstance, encounter with an old coach of mine allowed her to be a hammer thrower. So
That is
yeah, I
awesome.
sort
Yeah,
of
and there's a
I've gotten off topic, but
no,
yeah,
no, but you're right that we're so focused on one thing, or we start noticing that we like other things, and then we kind of get lost. So it's nice to run into people that can kind of give you that confidence to say, yeah, I actually like this, and I don't know why, but I
yeah,
do.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I like that you said that, because even as adults, we still kind of get that shiny object syndrome where it's
Oh
just like,
yeah.
oh, I kind of like this. I kind of listen, and you spread yourself so thin that you can't actually get
Yeah.
ahead
Yeah.
into
Yeah. That I know.
one thing. Yeah, no, that is definitely good advice, to try to weed out the extra stuff and focus on where you really want to be.
Yeah.
That's good advice. How do you find balance? Because you're very busy. You're doing all sorts of this. How do you find balance between work, your interests, family, you're taking care of yourself, all of that?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm organized, but I'm also a slob. So, I mean, some organized people, you think of this sort of type A kind of minimalist, you know,
Yeah.
and that's in my mind what I would like to reach and achieve someday. Never going to happen. What I try to do is just sort of focus on what I'm doing at the time. So work is work, and then when I leave work, the way my wife and I run our little sideline business is, we love to hunt and to find. So we'll go to value villages, content sales, garage sales, auctions.
Mhm.
I've got a few items I'm looking at an auction this evening that I'm hoping that I can win. And then I take the photos and I crop them. And then she does all the listings and the posting. So we'll just sit down, and it's great because just as a time management thing, we'll be, watching something, a little bit of something on TV, and I can do what I'm doing and she can do what she's doing at the same time. And then like with the union stuff, I mean, I get like 45 minutes for lunch. So sometimes I'll be, reading and trying to learn a little bit more about that. And, I like following. I have a degree in political science and history, so I naturally gravitate to watching the news. So I try to check certain news feeds a couple of times a day, just to kind of know what's going on in the world. And then if there's something I like that's a little bit more specific, I do that. And so. And then, I usually can have a little block of time somewhere else. One of the things that's nice about nursing that other professions don't get is because I do shift work, I'll work days and evenings. So when I'm working in the evening, I work from 3:30 to 11:30, but I have a block of time during the day. So, I'll do the usual, chores around the house, and then that usually gives me a block of time. And so I'll either, work on the business, or I'll spend a bit of time doing some new hobby or whatever. I'm also a napper, so I have to get a nap in there. So otherwise, I'm done. So
I'm a napper too. I love it. Yeah.
I love my nap.
Oh yes. And if you skip a day and you just feel off afterwards.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be long. Just that half hour, 45 minutes, and then I'm good to go.
Yeah. Just to recharge the battery, and off you go.
Yeah.
Is there anything new or anything that you're working on right now that you'd like to share with us?
Well, again, like one of the things that I really like doing is the collecting and finding of sort of found objects that we can do, and we've found some really cool stuff. My wife went in the Value Village. She found these little Satsuma vases. They were about from the 1890s. They're from Japan, but they were from a really good factory. And so we managed to put those in an auction, like one of the bigger auction houses in Toronto, and they did quite well for us. This one auction, I managed to find this a Chinese scroll by this artist, Tang Ying, and I actually managed to get that into Christie's auction house in New York, and it's sold, for like. Not, I couldn't retire by 90, but for thousands of dollars, which considering I bought it for 60, I was very, very excited. And the other thing now is I'm relatively new to being in the union, but it's a very interesting time to be part of the union executive, because with Bill 124 that had come through and then had been struck down, but now they're appealing it. Wages have been locked. There's a massive dissatisfaction in healthcare, and so that's one of the things that I've been really trying to work on and to focus on is what can we do, like specifically as, let's say, a union, to help our members, and not just our members, but anyone in the healthcare system. When you have, I mean, I don't mean to be political, but when you have certain governments that are somewhat hostile, or their agenda doesn't coincide with funding public sector healthcare at its fullest. So that's something else I've been trying to focus on and to learn more of.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's something new.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, sorry to cut you off. No, I was going to say it's something new, so it kind of gets you motivated to learn more. So it's good.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, that's okay. I'm not sure what I was going to say. I'm sure it wasn't very interesting.
Everything you say is interesting. What are you talking about?
There you are. Yeah, you're the perfect host.
Right. Now, Oh, there's this question that I ask, and I didn't actually explain it to you when I sent you the question, so I'll explain it a little bit. A few years back, before the pandemic, is this little girl that was interviewing adults on their profession. She was about 9 or 10 years old, and at the end of her interview, this was for her school project, she would ask this question that all adults ask children. So she figured she would ask adults the same question and nobody would answer her. She would get really frustrated. So her mom had told her, maybe you should stop asking that question. And she was just so adamant. It's like, no, somebody's going to get it. I'm going to keep asking. So when she asked me, I answered. I didn't even think twice. I told her everything. And she turned around and told her, I said, see, Mom, I told you somebody would get it. So I told her that I would ask everybody I interview that same question. So I'm going to ask you now, what would you like to be when you grow up?
What would I like to be? Well, I'd like to continue to be curious, because that, leads to a lot of things. And
Yes.
I've never been rich. I wouldn't mind trying that.
I love that. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know what it's like over on that other side of the fence, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty much enmeshed in this fence. I want to try there over for a minute.
That's right. I love it. Yeah, I've done enough on this side. Let's try on the
let's
other
try
side.
there.
I love it. I love how you said that. This is why I love asking this question, because you never know what answer you're gonna get.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much. Now I could talk to you all day, but I'm gonna wrap things up a little bit. But before I do, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot like this, if anybody would like to see the work that you do with the kind of the antiques of the hunt that you do, or anything that you work, is there a way that people can reach you or follow you? Or
we have a few different sites. We sell through Etsy, and so it would be Apollo Vintage Design, all one word. So you would have to go to the Etsy app, and then you would just want to look into Apollo Vintage Design, like just sort of type it out, and it'll say, are you looking for the shop? And you click yes, and that's our main site with what of our finds. So.
Oh, that's amazing. And I'll add that to the description and the comments when I post or when I upload the episode, so people can follow you guys.
Okay, great. Well, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining. I could talk to you all day, but I really enjoyed our chat. And keep doing the amazing work. I can't wait to see you on the other side there, enjoying the.
Well, I won't talk to you if I'm on that other side, though.
Oh. I see how that goes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I'll join you.
Okay. There we are.
That's gonna be my new thing. That's what I want to be when I grow up too.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you again, and for everybody watching, again, don't forget to follow, or subscribe to whichever channel you're watching or listening in from, and don't forget to have a look at Douglas's shop on Etsy. I'm going to put those in the comments and the description. So until then, stay safe, stay awesome, and we'll talk soon.